Good morning. We are here.
Barbara Hutchinson,
And what year were you born, Barbara?
1925,
1925. So that makes you
97.
97. Okay. And where were you born?
Sachs.
Starks, Maine. In the house or in the
Yes, I was
hospital?
born at home.
At home.
Yes,
Did your mother ever tell you about that at all?
not too much. I think she had a neighbor that considered herself as a midwife and probably assisted in my birth. I don't know.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty exciting. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had a brother a year and a half after I was born, and then I was then I had a sister that was 7 years younger than me.
So three of you?
Yes, until I got married and I had a child, and my mother and I was pregnant at the same time. She didn't know I was pregnant, and I didn't know she was pregnant.
Wow.
So my brother was 6 months younger than my son.
And did they become friends?
Yes, and more like brothers.
What was Starks like in the late 1920s and 30s?
Well, we had I lived near the village, and we had a store in the village, and a church, and a town hall, and had a canning factory in town. And they canned corn in the fall of the year. And it gave the local people a chance to work. I know my mother worked, and my father, and it helped to pay their taxes, what they earned in the corn shop.
And that's what you called the canning factory?
The canning factory, yes.
The corn shop.
Yes.
Any other factories or stores?
No, there was a sawmill right in the village. There was a lemon stream coming through the village. There was a bridge in the village, and there was a sawmill right by the dam, and they used water power for their mill and sawed long lumber into boards.
Oh, okay. There's no bridge anymore, right?
Oh, yes.
There
There's
is?
always been a bridge there.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
And did you
And the
have,
schoolhouse was right side of our house. I didn't have very far to walk to school.
can you tell me about going to school?
Well, it was a two-room schoolhouse, the primary room and the grammar room, and there was 4 grades in each room. And each room had a teacher. And usually the teachers come from out of town, so they would board at some place in the town to be able to teach there, because they didn't have much transportation back then, I guess,
Did the school, how was it heated?
by wood stoves. Yes.
So who got the wood stove? The going the kids or the teacher?
Well, my father was tended the fires at one time, and at one time the stove overheated overnight, and it caught the schoolhouse on fire and burnt the schoolhouse. So then they had to rebuild a new school.
Wow.
So the kids went to school in the town hall. They made it into classrooms for the kids to go to school.
Did you have an outhouse?
Oh, yes.
A boys' outhouse and a girls' outhouse? Or
Well, it was in the part of the schoolhouses, or at the end of the hallway. There were boys' toilets and the girls' toilets.
what subjects did you learn back then?
The 3 R's.
Can you tell me a little bit about your house where you lived in Starks?
Well, I don't really remember them building the house, but I know my father and mother built the house that we lived in. And when I was born, we lived, there was a two-family farmhouse. And my grandparents, well, it was actually my father's aunt and uncle. His mother died when he was born, so his aunt and uncle brought him up. And so we lived in the other end of the farmhouse where I of course called them grandparents back then. And we lived there until later on that my father, when my father and mother got married, my grandfather lived in the village and he owned quite a lot of land, and so he gave my mother and father a wedding present of a piece of land.
Oh,
So they built a house, and that's where I lived, and it was right beside the schoolhouse, so I didn't have very far to go. There was 3 rooms downstairs and 2 bedrooms upstairs.
did you have electricity?
Not for quite a while. No, we had kerosene lamps. My father had a cow. We had a barn, and so we had a cow and always raised a pig and for meat. And my father in later life got a job at the paper mill in Madison. So he had a pretty good job at that time, and so our living was a little bit better than it had been in the past because we had more money.
You got electricity?
Yes.
What about indoor plumbing?
No.
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 And in the winter time you went out?
Oh, yes.
Wow. Okay.
Had to shovel a path.
Oh boy, wow. When you were growing up, did you consider yourself a rich family or a poor family, or didn't you think about it?
I didn't think about it. We were actually poor, but I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I never knew that we were poor.
Yeah. But you had enough to eat?
Yes.
What
We
about?
always had a garden.
Mm-hmm.
My mother canned. Back then we didn't have freezers.
Oh, so
So
you had to can everything.
my mother canned,
Did
yes.
you dry or smoke anything?
No.
No.
But actually they had the biggest garden at my grandparents, because he had the equipment to plow the fields to make gardens. And my grandmother and my mother would can the goods at her house because they had more water to work with than we had at our house, and took quite a lot of water to do a canning.
Did you have a well?
We had a well,
And a
yes.
pump?
In time, we had a pump in the house at the sink that we could pump water. But before that, we had to draw water out of the well with a pail on a rope.
In the winter, didn't it freeze, or?
Oh, yeah.
So what did you do?
Have to shovel out a path in the well, and
But the water didn't freeze?
not in the well, no.
What kind of crops did you grow?
Almost everything that you can think of.
Corn?
Not so much corn, because my grandfather, there was a canning factory in the town that they canned corn in the fall, and my grandfather would raise acres of corn and haul it to the corn shop, because he didn't live very far from the corn shop, and he had a pair of horses that he used to haul the corn to the corn shop.
Oh.
My grandfather didn't have a tractor back then in those days, so he did everything by hand with horses.
Was that your transportation?
No,
Did you have a car?
no, we
No.
didn't. My grandfather had a car.
Do you remember what kind of car he had?
Well, it was a touring car with all open, with no windows, glass windows in the car or anything. They called it a touring car.
Touring car.
That was back in the 20s, 30s.
In the 30s. Did you ever go to Farmington or other towns?
No, I went to high school in Madison, and I had a cousin that had a car. He was in upper grades, and so he was able to drive and rode to school with him by a vehicle to go to high school, because they didn't have transportation back then for high school students.
And when did you move from Starks to industry?
1944.
So that was when you got married?
Yeah.
Okay, so you went to Madison High School. What was Madison High School like back then?
Well, rather small compared with schools now. I don't, coming from a small town to go into Madison, I didn't know anybody. And it made it kind of hard for me because I was always kind of shy.
Mm-hmm.
But I managed to get through school for 4 years and graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to work that fall in the con shop, my first job after I got out of school. And that's where I met my husband. He was working there.
Can you tell us that story of how he met you?
Well, his sister and husband was working there, so she told him that there was a girl working there that he ought to come get a job and meet me.
And what did you think when you first saw him?
Well, I liked the looks of him.
So was he your first boyfriend?
First and only.
First and only, okay.
Yeah.
And did you go to dances or anything back then?
Well, his sister and husband ran dances over in another town, over in West Mills. And so he loved music, but he didn't dance. But we would go to the dances, and I had learned to dance. Well, I joined the Grange when I was senior in high school. In Starks, there was nothing going for young people, but they did have a Grange. So I joined the Grange to have something to go to, and then I used to ride with older people would pick me up to go to the Grange. And they had musicians in the Grange, so they would dance. And that's how I learned to dance, was in the Grange. But then when I got married, my husband wasn't a dancer, so we never went to dances. But then when his sister and husband ran dances, we would go to the dances, and people would ask me to dance.
What kind of dances did you do?
Oh, waltzes and square dances.
So what were some of the common meals that she would have made for you, for the family?
What we'd raise in the garden and what she would can.
Did she make casseroles, like
No, not back then.
just meat, right?
Soups.
Soups, okay.
Soups. Mm-hmm. And we'd have raised chickens, and so we would have chickens and raise a pig. Raise our own animals for meat.
For meat. And she baked?
She baked, oh yeah, made bread and cakes and cookies.
Did you bake?
Not at home.
No.
No, she didn't have time to, she had so much to do that she had to do it herself to get it done, and didn't have time to teach me because I was observing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got married, I pretty much knew from watching her, and then I'd read recipes, use recipes.
Okay. What about chores? Did you have chores that you had to do?
Oh, yes.
Like what?
I had to sweep the floors, do dishes, do the ironing, because back then we didn't have the materials and clothing that they have that today that doesn't have to be ironed. Back then, a lot of the clothes had to be ironed because they would be so wrinkled.
Uh-huh. And you use those old-fashioned
Oh, yes.
cast iron?
Yes. Put them on top of the wood-burning stove to heat them. Yeah.
Wow. What about doing the wash? How did she do the wash?
Well, my grandparents lived down in the village near the stream, Lemon Stream, and they had running water in the house. So my grandmother and grandfather had a washing machine. My mother would go down there, take her clothes down there and do the washing in a washing machine down at my grandmother's house.
So when you say a washing machine, what kind of a washing machine?
Wringer washing.
Ringer. Okay.
Wringer washer, yes.
What did your family do for fun? I know that they worked hard, but did you do anything together for fun? Games?
Oh, my brother and I played cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of cards we played, but another deck of cards is called flinch. And we used to play flinch.
Flinch. Never heard of that.
Never heard of that. And I got a pack of flinch around here somewhere, and I've been going to dig them out. And it's a stack that about that high of flinch cards, and you make books. I guess book of four alike. When you get, you hold some, they held some, and you ask for whatever they got in their hand and match it with yours. And when you get four matching cards, you lay it down as a book.
Huh. That sounds
And
fun.
I think we played bingo, but we had to make up our own games back then. Oh, I had a restaurant, I guess.
You had a restaurant?
We from the kitchen out on the back deck. We call them a deck today. Back then we called them piazza, and it was a big flat, deck, and underneath it was high enough up so I could stand underneath it, and that was where I played. And I had a make-believe restaurant, and there was steps that went down from the deck down to the ground, and the steps was quite wide, and it was open. So, well, probably all I had was just my brother, to come into my restaurant to eat, because it was just my brother and I, and he would sit with his legs in, and the step would be his table where he'd sit, and I had a rope along the way, and I cut out pictures of food in the catalogs and put it up with a clothespin on the rope, and so whoever come to my restaurant to eat, they could order from
That's great.
the menu.
Tell us the story about when you went ice skating down the river.
Oh, I love to ice skate, and the stream run right through the village, and below the dam, this other young girl, we were both teenagers, took our shoes off and put our skates on, and it was the ice was frozen. Wonderful! It was wonderful skating.
And what river?
Lemon Stream.
Lemon Stream, okay.
Lemon Stream in Starks, and we put our skates on, and we started skating on the river, and so we kept skating and skating, and we just kept on going. It was so nice, and we come to this. We could look up across this field, and there was a farmhouse up there. So we walked in our skates up across the field to this house, and I don't even remember, but there must have been some snow on the ground. I don't remember if it's snow on the ground or whether it was a bare field, but probably there was some snow. I don't know, but anyway, we went up this farmhouse. We rapped on the door. I don't know what possessed us to do that, but we did, and this lady let us in, and she made some hot chocolate for us, We drank that. And then she found 2 pair of old shoes, women's shoes. And I guess they had heels on them, too, women's shoes. And thought at some point we would need to walk back to home.
And did you get as
So-
far as Norwich Walk?
So we got as far, well, I didn't know it at the time, but we was in Norwich Walk. And so we got back to Stacks, and we come to this stream, brook, and it had a bridge. And we got out there by the bridge, and we must have had to have walked in our skates home. Oh, she gave us the shoes, that was it. She gave us the shoes that we put on. And then we walked to the village, and well, I walked home. I didn't go down where my shoes were, so I don't even remember going back and getting my shoes, but because I did the next day. And I don't even remember my parents saying anything to me,
No?
where I'd been or anything, but they must have asked me, but I guess they didn't punish me in any way, or I would have remembered it.
Yeah.
But they must have been worried about me, because it was about dusk before I got back home.
Mm-hmm. That was quite an adventure.
My daughter Dawn East and I, we skated up across the lake. Didn't we? Yeah, we skated clean up the other end of the lake,
Wow.
from the village here up across the lake and back.
Wow.
That was well, she was a teenager when I did that with her.
Tell me about industry in the 1940s. Was there a store?
Yes, we always had a store, come to think of it. Yeah, when I come over here, there was a Grange Hall over in the big building, which was the Grange Hall. And there was a store downstairs and the main hall upstairs in the Grange Hall. There was always a little store here in town. So we always had like a grocery store. They had, a little bit of everything in the store.
Was there a post office?
No,
No?
not when I was here. We always had mail delivery.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you just had that,
mailboxes.
just that one store?
Just that. Well, in later years, there was another store, but it didn't stay in business that long. Then we almost always had a garage in that town.
That worked on the cars?
Yes, yeah.
Did you have a restaurant?
No, not in my day.
Not in your day.
Before I come over here, back in my husband's day, I guess they had a restaurant in town.
So you raised your family right here in industry?
Yes, yes.
Right. And how many children again did you have?
3,
3. Okay. And they went to school in industry?
yeah.
And then what about high school?
Then they had to go to Farmington to high school.
Was there a bus?
Yes,
There was a bus. Okay.
yeah.
Do you remember hearing any stories about any of your ancestors, grandparents, great-grandparents, about Barlow Nichols who went to South Dakota or North Dakota?
He was out west somewhere, but he was a cook on a wagon train.
Wow.
Yeah,
And what relative was he to
my
you?
grandfather,
Your grandfather, okay. And he was Barlow?
Barlow, but he was almost 107 when he passed away.
Wow.
He lived alone for a good many years. After my father was born, his mother died, and he was brought up by an aunt and uncle, and that left my grandfather with, well, I guess he had 4 at home, because he had 5 in all. My aunt and uncle took my father and brought him up.
So you remember your grandparents?
Oh yes, they lived right close by, in Sachs.
Yeah.
So
And what was the family name?
Moss, I used to go in the barn, watch him milk the cows by hand, and my grandmother kept a a little tin dipper on a shelf up over the sink in the kitchen, and so I would take that dipper out in the barn, and he would milk some milk into the dipper for me, and I would drink it.
Oh.
And then, unbeknownst to him, I would go in the milk room where he put his cans of milk into a place with where he put cold ice and keep the cans of milk. And I would open up one of those cans and dip my dipper down and get some more milk to drink, unbeknownst to my grandfather. One cup that he milked in the cup wasn't enough for me.
You wanted more.
I wanted more milk.
Did any of the world events impact you, like World War II?
Not that much.
Did you know people that went to fight in World War II?
Very few from where I lived in Stacks. But
Yeah.
I know one person that went. I didn't really know him, but he got killed in the war.
Mom, did they have rationing of sugar
Yes,
during that time?
yes, they did. We had food rationing, and we had coupons that we could get so much. And some people that didn't need their coupons to buy shoes or something or other, they would give it to somebody else that needed the coupons.
So if you needed shoes, where did you get shoes?
Next town over in Madison.
In Madison, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you-
Starks was just a small town. Your father's parents would, they lived on a farm, and they would swap what they raised on the farm to go to a grocery store and swap it to get other foods, like sugar and flour and stuff like that.
So that it was pretty common back then
Yeah.
to barter or swap.
About it, yes.
Can you show us those two dresses and tell us about those dresses?
This is a dress that I wore when I graduated from 8th grade.
That's beautiful. Was it homemade?
No,
You bought it in a store.
sent away to Montgomery Ward. And there was the other girls in my class. I think there were 3 other girls in my class, and we all had the same dress.
Oh, really?
We all sent there to get our dresses.
And did you plan it that way?
Well, I guess after maybe I was the first one to get the dress, then they decided they would do the same.
Well, it's a
I-
lovely dress. Did you wear earrings or jewelry then?
No jewelry,
Probably no lipstick or
No.
anything. Not in 8th
not
grade.
even beads around my neck, I don't believe.
What about stockings? Did they have nylon stockings then,
No.
or no?
I don't know what I wore.
I guess just
I
ankle
must have-
socks.
I must have worn some stockings.
And the other dress?
Well, this was my mother's wedding dress,
And what year?
1925.
And what style of dress was that?
I really don't know.
I think that was a flapper.
It does. One side is longer than the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never noticed that before.
Yeah. And that was homemade, right?
Yes.
Who made that?
I have an idea my mother made it.
Your mother made it. And you've managed to save that all these years. That's amazing. Now,
Yes, that's 96 years old, 97.
now that picture right there with the dress over it, that's your husband's side of the family,
Yes,
the Hutchinsons.
yes. They used to get up bus trips for people to go on trips, and so my husband wasn't one to go anywhere, but he did go on this trip with me. We went to New Orleans.
That must have been quite an adventure.
It was, yeah. And he acted as though he really was enjoying it, but after we got home, I would hear him talking to other people about his trip. This is my husband's father, Delmont Hutchinson. And so my oldest son, I named him Delmont. And on my mother's side of the family, my grandmother had a little boy, and he passed away as a young boy, and his name was Delmont. So the Delmont name kind of come from both sides of the family.
Uh-huh.
This is my husband's mother.
If you had to give any advice to youngsters today, or maybe even young women, what might you say to them? Kind of like words of wisdom.
Be honest, keep busy. Yeah.
Any advice for young women about marriage?
Well, I never dated. I wasn't allowed to go out with boys. I wasn't interested in boys whatsoever, but when I saw him, I thought, gosh, he looks pretty nice.
And he was the one?
And he was the one.
So what was the success to, how many years were you married? 40?
42.
42. What
And
was
he's-
the success to that happy marriage?
Love at first sight, I guess.
Okay. Nice.
And,
And you stayed in love?
oh yes, yeah,
That's wonderful. Your one true love.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. We appreciate it. You taking the time to tell us everything about your life.